Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, DwyerVIP.com for premium picks. Look us up in the sports section. We're on Roku, Dwyer Boxing, and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. These are the kind of picks, this video is for free, but these are the kind of picks that I normally offer for $9.99 for a set of 3 of them on DwyerVIP.com. These picks are for Week 16 of the NFL season for 2013. Right? So, with that in mind, let's hop into it. What I want you to do, and this video is intended for sophisticated gamblers who understand the risks inherent in sports betting. What I want you to do is to look at the current lines. You can find several of them at VegasInsider.com. Right? Look at the current lines as I talk, because we're not here to just pick winners. We're here to bet spreads. So, let's get at it. The first game I'm recommending for Week 16 is Carolina laying 3 points at home against the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. Right now, just understand, Carolina is one of the very few physical teams, in my opinion, that have a plausible chance of at least making the game competitive against Seattle in the playoffs if that happens. I think Seattle wins the NFC. I think most teams would fold up in the Pacific Northwest. I believe the Carolina Panthers, the way they're constructed with a very physical defense, an excellent rushing attack, and a mobile quarterback, they're one of the few teams who I could see at least competing in the game. Keep an eye on Carolina. Right now, Carolina is 6-1 at home. 2 weeks ago, they got beaten up by the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. But understand, the Saints are not the same team on the road. And understand, Carolina is 6-1 at home. Also, let's look closely at the Saints' victory over Carolina. Did you know that in that game, Carolina had 128 rushing yards? They had more than 100 rushing yards. Did you know that New Orleans in that game was held to less than 70 rushing yards? Think about this too. Last week against the Rams, right? A game that the Saints lost. Understand, in that game, the Saints gave up 144 rushing yards. Also, Cam Newton is much better at home statistically than he is on the road. I think Carolina wants payback for getting blown out by the Saints 2 weeks ago. I think Carolina wants the 2 seed in the NFC. I'm expecting them to cover the 3 points against the Saints this weekend. Now, this next bet is actually a teaser. Okay, what you're going to do is tease 2 plays, right? You're going to fool around with a 6-point swing on the betting line, right? These are bets that the casinos offer, where you go up to the counter, you say, I want a teaser. I want to tease this bet with that bet, right? Shave 6 here, swing 6 there, etc. This teaser play is as follows. It's a 2-part teaser. Right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are favored by 8.5 points over the Minnesota Vikings. I want you to tease that down to Cincinnati laying 2.5 points, right? 6 points teased, right? So instead of Cincinnati laying 8.5, more than a touchdown, I want you to tease that down to Cincinnati laying 2.5 points against the Minnesota Vikings. I want you to couple that with the Houston Texans, and keep in mind, they're playing Peyton Manning and the big bad Denver Broncos. I want you to tease that with the Houston Texans up from 10 points to 16 points, right? More than 2 touchdowns. I want you to tease the Texans to 16 points over the Denver Broncos, right? Just understand, getting back to Cincinnati. Cincinnati right now is unbeaten at home. Right? They're unbeaten at home. Now, I personally feel the Minnesota Vikings with Matt Castle are better than advertised. They shouldn't have been fooling around with the other quarterbacks. Castle is a decent quarterback. Minnesota's better than advertised. I don't like the 8.5 points. That's why I'm teasing it down at 2.5. Cincinnati needs to win this game to stay in the race to win their division. Keep in mind, they have a big game coming up week 17 against divisional rival, the Baltimore Ravens. So Cincinnati has to come out with all guns blazing this game. They also need to bounce back from last week's embarrassing loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm expecting Cincinnati to at least cover the 2.5 points teased, right? And of course, the Houston Texans, I believe, are much better with Matt Schaub than they are with any other quarterback, right? I understand Matt Schaub's being villainized, but keep in mind, the Houston Texans were on the verge of beating the Seattle Seahawks earlier in the season with Schaub before he made an errant throw and had that game blow up in his face. In fact, this Texan team was in the playoffs last year, and they still have J.J. Watt, they still have Andre Johnson, they still have the stars on their team. Now, it's true that they're banged up at running back, no question about it. But 16 points is an awfully big amount, right? And the Texans are playing at home against a Bronco team that has injuries. Wes Walker is out for this game, right? And this Bronco team, in my opinion, isn't the same on the road that they are at home. I also feel that the league now knows how to defense the Broncos better than it did the first month of the season. So I like the Texans getting 16 points as part of this teaser. Okay, so the first bet I've recommended is Carolina laying 3 against the Saints at home. The second bet I'm recommending is a teaser. Cincinnati, right, with the tease, laying 2.5 at home over the Minnesota Vikings, and the Houston Texans getting 16 points at home against the Denver Broncos. Let's talk about the third play. Count me among those who likes the Washington Redskins getting 2.5 points over the Dallas Cowboys. If you can hold out and hope that the line gets to 3 points, I would recommend you do that. It's always better if you're taking a dog to at least get a field goal. But even at 2.5, I'll take the Redskins over the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. All you need to know about Kirk Cousins is that the same draft in which the Redskins made an organizational decision to trade for RG3 with the first pick of the draft. And keep in mind, they gave up a lot to get RG3. In that same draft, they drafted Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. Right? Why would you draft another quarterback in the same draft in which you're picking a popular reigning Heisman Trophy winner? And the answer is simply somebody high up in the Redskin organization thought that Kirk Cousins can play. They may have even thought that Kirk Cousins can play better than RG3. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about the day of the draft when they were both picked. Now, if the RG3 pick was an organizational decision that involved the highest members of the organization, let's say Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, I'm guessing Mike Shanahan, who knows quarterbacks, whose background is on the offensive side of the ball, who has coached some pretty good quarterbacks. Think Elway, think Plummer. I'm guessing he looked on film and understood that while Kirk Cousins doesn't have the strongest arm in the league, right? Think Drew Brees. Think Andy Dalton. Kirk Cousins can quickly process information and make the throws and decisions that quarterbacks need to make in the National Football League to be successful. Right? So, you have Cousins picked the same draft. Keep in mind, normally what teams do when they have a young prodigy, and they need to back him up, is they will pick up people like a Matt Hasselbeck, some veteran quarterback who's been around, who's started some games, and now who is in the twilight of his career. But here the Redskins actually drafted another quarterback in the same draft. Now let's talk about when the change was made. You had 3 winnable games on the table. The Atlanta Falcons were in the NFC Championship game last year, but this year has been bad for them. Right? My point to you is the Redskins had to view the Atlanta Falcon game as more winnable than, let's say, a game against the Denver Broncos. The game after that, of course, is the one game, if you're a Redskin fan, you want to win every year. Right? In fact, the series you want to win every year. Right? It's Cowboys and Indians. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Right? What sells Redskins season tickets more, apart from winning a Super Bowl, than saying we beat the Dallas Cowboys? Right? This is your arch rival. This is, Auburn's Alabama. Right? This is, Stanford's Cal Berkeley. This is your big game. Right? USC's UCLA. You're telling me that you would change quarterbacks with this game ahead of you? Does anyone here believe, truly, that protecting your quarterback is a bigger priority to the Washington Redskin franchise than beating Jerry Jones's Dallas Cowboys? Well, let's go one step further. The last game of the season. Another divisional game. The New York Giants. DC versus New York. Now, in my opinion, Coach Shanahan looked at 3 important games, 3 winnable games, and decided that his best chance to win these games was with Kirk Cousins. Right? Let's get real. The stated political reason, right, the cover story is I needed to protect the quarterback. Why then did the Redskins come out against Atlanta and throw the ball as much as they did? Guys, the Redskins have one of the league's better rushing attacks. Right? Alfred Morris didn't even get 100 yards last week. He was close, but they didn't give him the carries. The game plan, while supposedly protecting their quarterback, was to throw the ball all around the field. And what did Kirk Cousins do? He got well north of 300 yards passing. Right? People can focus on 2 interceptions all they want. The guy threw more touchdowns than interceptions. I'm here to tell you Kirk Cousins is a talent. This is a big game. I think the Redskins have underperformed all year long. I think this game's a coming out party. I think the Cowboys, a team that inexplicably decided to pass the ball in the second half of a game in which their running back was averaging over 8 yards a carry at the end of the first half, right, and giving away a more than 20-point lead. The Cowboys are reeling right now. There's disarray, right? The head coach, Jason Garrett, won't even own up to having the authority to switch the offensive game plan when it was obvious in the second half of that game that Raider reject Matt Flynn was taking down the Dallas Cowboy franchise. Right? So in my opinion, the Redskins have given themselves the best chance to win with Kirk Cousins for this week. Right? They're facing a team that's an arch rival that they're going to be motivated to play. Right? Redskin players are thinking about the Cowboys on opening day. They're playing in front of the Redskin faithful at home. They're going to try to defend their home. And they're catching the Cowboys at exactly the right time. Right? Cowboy wide receivers are leaving the field before the end of games. And then their explanation is they didn't want to cry on the sideline. You got to be kidding me. The Cowboys are reeling. I like the Skins here. Getting. You're not even laying. You're getting 2.5 points in Washington. All right, so those are my picks. That's how I see it. These are picks that, I normally sell, in packages for less than $10 or around $10 at DwyerVIP.com. I hope you give us a look as we head into the playoffs. Okay, good luck. I hope you cash all of your tickets. Keep us in mind for your future betting plays. Thanks for stopping by.